Hi, in this part we are going to continue where we left off last time, and we said that we are going to build a front end. So first thing I'd like to say that I missed some of the things when we were configuring Next UI. So let's just go over these. First we missed adding a plugin for the Next UI here, and we also missed adding the Next UI provider, which we did here. Also, we had some default CSS that comes from Next.js, which we deleted because we don't want that. And as you can see in layout, we added a class named dark to make the dark theme our default theme. As we said last time, we want to send a request to API players as soon as the application loads, so we added this API call here in the layout file. API client is just an Axios client, so you will have to npm install Axios, and we are keeping the public API URL inside the environment variable like this. So there is nothing complicated there, but for this to work we also had to make a small change on the backend. So we just needed to add a course configuration. As you can see, we allow 3000 origin and all the methods. Also we added this player interface, which represents the structure of the JSON which we will receive from the backend. Also we just added a simple navbar, but it's not really serving any function. So let's just see what happens if we load the application in the browser. As you can see, the player ID here appeared in the cookies, but if we inspect the network tab, we will see that the request was sent to API players, and this includes the set cookie header, which was sent from the backend. Now this, as we said previously in the previous video, will be important when we start setting up the WebSocket connection. Next, we want to define a grid on the front page which will hold all our games, and will also hold a create game card as the first element. And this is the grid, and let's see what the create game card looks like. As you can see, it only has one H1 element that says create new game. It has an input for the game name and a button. This button click handler doesn't yet do anything because we haven't implemented the endpoint on the backend, but let's just see how it looks for now. And here it is, exactly as we wanted to. Let's now implement the backend endpoint for creating games, and let's go step by step. First, what we want to do is we want to take the player from the request based on the cookie. So we already talked about this request util. It will get the cookie from the request, and then it will try to find the player in the game state or in the player state. It can return null, so what we need to do is we want to check if it is actually null, and in that case we want to send some error request code. I don't like to throw exceptions, so I usually keep my response entity like this, and then create some util class that can create different types of error responses. As you can see here, we have this response util, which has a static method error response, and it takes only an error code enum, and this enum can be different things. For this case, we are saying that the error code is player required, and it has some unique code, which is an integer and a message. And so if the request comes with no cookie and the player doesn't exist, we will return this error. We are going to create a game object, and we are going to pass some random paragraph from the state and name that we got in the request, as well as the owner. So this is the player who invoked this request. He is the owner of the game. And we also had to change this constructor a little bit so we can add this dependency to simp messaging template. This template allows us to send messages to topics, and we will see later why this is important. Let's just look at how we changed the constructor here. We are setting just the dependency on simp messaging template, and everything else is the same, except we added this check. If the current player who is trying to create this game is already part of another game, then we want to call a method to remove him from the previous game, and in that case, if the game is left with 0 players, it will be destroyed. But this isn't yet implemented, so we'll come to that. We just left a comment here. We also set the player's game reference to the current game that is being created. As you may remember, we added this reference in the, I think, first or second video, and we explained why we need that. One of the reasons is exactly this, so we can remove the player from previous games once he joins or creates a new one, although this shouldn't really happen based on the front-end implementation. And one more thing that we left a comment here for is to send a created game event to topic games, and this will be important so that any players who are here in the so-called lobby don't have to keep refreshing this page to see new games that are being created. So as soon as someone creates a new game, this event will be dispatched, and then the front end will update the state here accordingly. So let's now implement a create game handler on the front end. What we need to do is to just send a simple API request to games with the name, which is going to be the name we are setting here in this input. We will not have any validation. You can add that if you want to. And then what we want to do, we want to handle the request, and if the status of the response is okay, then we want to navigate to this path here, which we haven't yet created, but we will do that in the next video probably. And in case there is an error, we will just console log the error. So now we should be able to test if this create new game endpoint works. But before that, I noticed that there was a mistake. The hook use router was used outside the actual component, so we were getting an error. So we have to move it here, and there is also an issue on the backend. When we added the simp messaging template to the game object, we also have to add JSON ignore, because we don't want to be serializing this and sending it down as part of the response. And with that, we should now be able to send request and see if it works. As you can see, it succeeded, but we were sent back to this new path which we haven't yet implemented. And now you can see that I've added this page. It's at path g/id, which is the path variable. And for now we are just going to display this ID on the page. Let's just now test again if we are actually redirected to the correct page here. If we create a new game, yeah, we are redirected to game. In the next video, we are going to build a layout for this page, and then we are also going to set up a WebSocket connection, and we are going to listen to game created event on the front page, so we can add the game automatically to the UI as it's created. See you in the next one. Bye.